Sable is a game about the freedom and joy of exploration. It's a game I've considered making a video about for a long time, but I could never find the right words, because by its very nature, it's a very personal game. Sable is about a girl in a strange sci-fi wasteland discovering her place in the world. In this world, your role in society is determined by a mask that you wear, be it a town guard, or a shopkeeper, or a cartographer, or an engineer. These masks define your job and your place in society. When someone reaches a certain age, they're sent out on what's called the gliding, a spiritual journey where they're encouraged to explore everything the world has to offer and, eventually, choose their mask and their place. Now it's Sable's turn to begin her gliding and find her place. Speaking from personal experience, finding your place in the world is exceptionally difficult, be it a strange wasteland of ancient spaceships or Ontario. When I play Sable myself, there's a part of me that rejects the notion that I have to choose. The part I want, the part that I love, is the gliding itself. Venturing from town to town, location to location, seeing and experiencing everything that the world has to offer. But the gliding can't last forever, and I know that. You get older, your ability to make such journeys fades, and eventually you need stability if you want to have any sort of life. You need to compromise on that desire to explore with the reality of needing money for food. You need to let yourself be defined by a mask. And that's okay. Comfort and routine and stability are okay. It's maybe not as exciting or daring as eternal adventure, but you give up a lot for the adventuring life, and for most people, that's not a sacrifice worth making. Sable is the breakout game of Shedworks, a two-man dev team based in North London who started working on the game in a literal shed, hence the name. Over time, the project was picked up by publisher Raw Fury, and as with most games, there were quite a lot of people who ended up in the credits, including two people listed under the title Sweet Baby Inc., which covered additional writing. Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. Oh no. No. Why did the music just get all sinister? No, stop it!
We have so many mainstream shills coming out, literally trying to attack gamers right now, and to try to play defense and damage control for Sweet Baby Inc.
Sweet Baby Inc. has been working behind the scenes for over half a decade at this point, with the one goal of injecting woke political ideologies into video games.
So Sweet Baby Inc. is a consulting firm in the video game industry known for injecting a lot of woke nonsense into the projects that they've worked on.
Have you learned nothing from Gamergate?
You need to take note of everyone coming out in their defense, because they are snakes in the grass, they are scumbags, and you should not support them.
Is to push the woke agenda into any and all video games they can get their hands on.
So, if you understandably and logically don't spend a lot of time on the bad part of YouTube, then you've probably not yet heard about Sweet Baby Inc., the company that's destroying video games with forced diversity and woke ideology. Okay, where to begin? Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design support studio founded in 2018 with a focus on diversity and inclusive writing. They've been hired by many of the big studios and have played a part in quite a few of the big games that came out in the last year, including Alan Wake 2, God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That's, the reality version of what Sweet Baby Inc. is. The one everyone's talking about is... Hold on a sec. Sweet Baby Inc. is a tool of a secret cabal that's forcing DEI into all of the video games at the hands of the big investors to increase the ESG and force woke ideology into all of our video games. They want to destroy our culture and our society because they hate and want to destroy white men. A bit of an internet firestorm started when a Steam curator page was created that listed every game that Sweet Baby Inc. had been involved with. An employee of Sweet Baby Inc. found this page and asked their followers to report it. Things escalated. And bada bing, now that page has 250,000 followers. Search trends for Sweet Baby Inc. have gone up 100%, and it's the thing that every edgy gamer boy is talking about. Now, there's a lot going on here, and as of me making this video, this is still an evolving story, but suffice it to say, this is about a lot more than a Steam curator page. 250,000 people didn't start following this page just because they want to avoid games being made by this company. This is a movement. This is Gamergate 2.0. That's not me saying that. they're saying that.
I, myself, and a lot of people believe to be the start or the absolute firestorm that is going to be known as Gamergate 2.0.
Just like Gamergate 1.0, we're seeing a whole bunch of harassment of the employees of this company, people spending inordinate and obsessive amounts of time looking into the personal lives of these people. We're seeing talk of deep conspiracies at the core of our societies, a conspiracy against gamers, which this movement is fighting against. Also, just like Gamergate 1.0, this entire thing is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how, well, everything works, but specifically how companies like this work and how much power they actually have over the final product of a game. I am worried about this. Genuinely, Gamergate was a shit show, and this is shaping up to be just as bad, if not worse. So, at the very least, I hope that I can shed some light onto how movements like this function and increase awareness of what's going on right now. And hey, if you're a part of this movement, stick around, yeah? I know you've probably already clicked off and left some comment about how I sound like a woman with a throat disease or whatever, but if you haven't done that yet, stick around. You might learn something. Let's get our timeline straight, shall we? On the 29th of January, a Steam user called Cabrutus set up a Steam page called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, which listed all games from Sweet Baby's website that they have been credited to work on. About a month later, Chris Kindred, a writer at Sweet Baby, came across this, at the time, small page and tried to get their followers to flag it for harassment, which unfortunately had the opposite effect. The story was quickly twisted in these circles that Chris Kindred was doing a targeted harassment campaign on this page, which exposed the page to way more people and sparked harassment against Chris and all other employees at Sweet Baby. That's quite an impressive flip, isn't it? How do we go from a page specifically targeting this one company, a company mostly staffed by LGBTQ people and people of colour that I might add, to the person trying to report that page is the real harasser? Something that needs to be acknowledged immediately is that the people at the forefront of this movement are not morons, and they are quite internet savvy. That original post by Chris actually pointed out exactly what they were doing, even if it's been drowned out in the story later. The Steam curator page is very carefully worded as to not take a particular stance on why they've curated this list of Sweet Baby games. It's all just factual, for letting people know if a game is involved with this company. That's not, on the face of it, an inflammatory statement. You could even read it as supportive of Sweet Baby if you really wanted to. Here is a list of games by this company that I love. This is a deliberate rhetorical strategy. Everybody knows what the list is really for, but as long as that deniability exists, they can just play dumb about it. This list has nothing to do with hating diversity and inclusion, it's just about helping people make an informed purchasing decision. This group has the goal of letting people know about the games that SBI worked on. We are not, in any means, a group that is trying to kill SBI or even convince people not to buy any game that they've worked on. Everyone is free to buy any game, even if it's a game that SBI worked on. It's your decision. Chris's original tweet, which has now been deleted and the entire account put into private mode so I can't get the original, was screenshots of the Steam chat pages where Cabrutus was deliberately crafting this language to be more vague and obfuscate the true purpose of the list. Obviously, the harassers don't save those screenshots, and the group chat logs have long since been purged of any of that evidence, because as I say, these are internet-savvy people. Everything we're going to talk about is full of rhetorical tactics like this that are designed to obfuscate the issue to normies, as they call them. Those people who aren't as in tune to this stuff and are unable to see through these rhetorical games. Cabrutus himself is Brazilian, a fact that he talks about often in a loud and proud way because it implicitly says, I can't be racist, I'm not white. He doesn't say that, but other people talking about him certainly do. Anyway, this little rhetorical strategy is how we flip from Chris correctly calling out this page as bigoted targeted harassment to Chris Kindred is targeting this innocent person with harassment for just listing some video games. The issue with this rhetorical strategy is that the bigger the movement gets, the more likely it is that your members don't understand it and start saying the quiet part out loud. Chris Kindred from Sweet Baby Inc., you're the lowest form of life. You're pawn scum, and you deserve the worst things to happen to you and the extortionists you work with. Fuck you. Burn in hell. You don't work to Hell Games, you're trying to destroy them. Go out of business. As of right now, all posts and threads on the Steam group are locked because too many people were saying obviously bigoted things and getting flagged by Steam. When they start harassing Sweet Baby employees on Twitter, that's not actually a good look for the movement as a whole, since it gives the game away. Now we've got people digging up years-old tweets looking into everything they possibly can on every employee of this company to try and stir up more drama and find more reasons to harass them. The CEO gave a GDC talk 4 years ago about the importance of diversity and inclusion, so obviously we all need to watch through the entire thing and try and find some out-of-context clips that will paint her as a bad and evil person.
I think this sounds like utter bullshit. I think it sounds like intersectional victimhood, and I think it's embellishing this narrative, this victim narrative that she wants to push.
This writer used to be a friend of Zoe Quinn? Well, that's very suspicious. Clearly this is all connected to the people we hated from the first Gamergate. They can argue all they want that this isn't a harassment campaign, but the facts prove otherwise. So, why? Why all this hate for a random consulting firm? I mean, aside from the obvious. The thing is, we've gone beyond any kind of rational explanation and into full-blown conspiratorial thinking. Sweet Baby Inc. are single-handedly responsible for destroying any game that they have worked on. They're the ones who made the main character of Alan Wake 2 a black woman. They're the ones that turned Kratos into a feminized man-baby. They're the ones who put all those woke NPCs into Spider-Man 2. They're the ones that are the reason that Suicide Squad failed. The idea that Sweet Baby was responsible for any of those things is a complete misunderstanding of what these companies actually do. Saga Anderson is not a black lady because of Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. is involved with the game because Saga Anderson is a black lady. The game director has already said that it's not true, but conspiracy theorists will point to this game developer article from November which, if you can read, doesn't actually say that Sweet Baby had anything to do with making the character black, but I guess if you highlight some of the words, it sort of suggests that maybe they had some involvement with it. It's easier to accept that there's a singular villain invading your space, rather than just accept the reality that maybe Remedy just wanted to make their protagonist a black lady all along. If they're not invading and forcing developers to make extremely drastic changes to their entire game, what is it that Sweet Baby actually does? Well, if you go to their website, they have a little thingy that comes up and tells you what they did on a game. For Alan Wake 2, they worked on character arc, voice, and sensitivity reading. What that means is that Remedy brought them in as experts on diverse character writing. The lead writer for most of the Remedy games is this guy, Sam Lake. Maybe one of the most famous developers in the industry? He seems like a lovely man, but he is, as you can see, a white guy from Finland. When telling the story of someone who would have completely different life experiences than you, sure, you can't just wing it, but any good writer knows that if you want to tell a story from a real perspective, then you have to actually ask someone who has that perspective. That's how we involve Kim Belair and Sweet Baby Inc. Remedy brought them in to ensure that the game is truthful to the character they want to write and not just their idea of what a black lady is like. There's two reasons to do this. One is to avoid doing anything racist by accident, that's the sensitivity reading part, but the other is to ensure that they're making a more fully realised character who feels like a realistic black woman because they're written with the help of an actual black woman who can bring a more truthful perspective to the character. This practice is not new, it's been happening across all forms of media for decades. It's the same reason that the show House had medical professionals on the writing staff. If you're telling a show about doctors and you want it to ring true, then you should ask doctors about it. Not only will you avoid annoying doctors with obvious inaccuracies, but you'll also be creating better characters since they're influenced by real perspectives. The practice of bringing on outside studios for assistance in various aspects of game development is also not new. In fact, there's almost no AAA games that are created by only a single studio. Sweet Baby is only one of a huge pile of studios that assisted Remedy in the production of Alan Wake 2 across all areas of the game's production. The game was made by a global team of hundreds of different people. I should point out that while all of these guys claim that the majority of gamers agree with them and hate these games, here, in reality, Alan Wake 2 is a critical and commercial success that literally won an award for its narrative design last year. This is future editing Kyle here. Sometimes when you're watching a video back you notice a mistake, or not so much a mistake, a point of attack that someone operating in bad faith can and will use against you. And I just spotted one, so I'd like to clarify something I just said. According to various sources, Alan Wake 2 has technically not made a profit yet, but that doesn't mean the game was unsuccessful. It's Remedy's fastest selling game in their entire career. Video games don't sell like movies do. It's not all about getting those early sales in the box office. Games have very long tails, so while the game might not initially get all its money back, in the long term it most likely will. Just figured I should throw that in there in case someone decided to tell me that the game was a commercial failure because of wokeness or whatever. Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, and Sable are all widely beloved games. The only exception on their list is Suicide Squad, and that game's failure has very little to do with the narrative and more to do with the fact that it's a terrible live service game. But you can go further up the chain. Any journalist that gives a positive review to these games, defending the woke agenda. The Game Awards? They're definitely corrupted by the woke agenda. Anyone trying to point out that Sweet Baby doesn't actually do what they're saying it does? Oh, you guessed it. Paid chills by the woke agenda. You have to understand that this is a pack of rational and normal individuals. They are not racist. They don't hate black people. They hate the woke agenda. They're all for diversity, but they hate forced diversity. That's what's really ruining games. The people making these games, they don't want to add diversity. They're being forced to by the woke agenda. So, who's forcing all of these companies and game critics and small YouTubers to become part of the woke agenda?
Essentially, from the outside looking in, Sweet Baby Inc. appears to be the ESG enforcement wing of BlackRock or other ESG champions within the video game industry to help problematic publishers and developers step in line with the so-called socially acceptable ideologies that further promote this woke agenda to ensure that stock prices stay high and the cash injections keep coming from companies like BlackRock.
Okay, so BlackRock is an incredibly successful investment management firm estimated to have control over $10 trillion worth of assets. That's a lot, and it gives BlackRock a significant amount of power. This power has made BlackRock the centre of all sorts of conspiracy theories about the company that secretly controls the world. The general idea is that BlackRock and a couple other companies like them have shares in all of the big companies and use that share power to force their influence on them. Specifically, BlackRock is a big proponent of ESG investment, which stands for Environmental, Social and Governance. The general idea is that it's better to invest in companies that are working to improve these areas. So basically, ESG is the woke agenda. To bring it back to Sweet Baby Inc., the theory is that these companies are bringing in Sweet Baby Inc. not because they want to increase the diversity of their games, but because they want to increase their ESG score and secure that funding from BlackRock and other companies like it. These asset managers are essentially cartels, forcing these companies to do things that they don't want to do. Like a lot of conspiracies, there is a grain of truth in there amongst all the nonsense. BlackRock are a very powerful company, but there's a big misunderstanding here about what BlackRock actually does. BlackRock do not own the vast majority of the shares that they invest. They're a funds management firm, which in very simple terms means that people give them money and then they gather all of that money in a big pool and invest it in a bunch of different companies. But the money they invest does not belong to them, it belongs to a whole bunch of different people. Shares in a company do give you a vote on some company activities, so when these votes happen, a BlackRock representative makes those votes on behalf of the people who've given their money to BlackRock to manage for them. Arguably, that still gives BlackRock the same amount of power. It's not their money, but they're still deciding where it goes and what's done with it. They could still be using it to advance the woke agenda. The second misconception, then, is the amount of power these companies actually have. They have a lot, but not nearly enough to exert the level of control that people are suggesting they have. For example, BlackRock currently own, since we've already explained that they don't technically own these shares, 6.7% of shares in the Walt Disney Corporation. That is a significant amount, but it's not even close to a majority. You need a 51% minimum before you can push anything without opposition. Even if you assume all of these companies are working together, which is an insane assumption to make on the face of it, Vanguard, another asset manager, holds 8.3% of Disney shares. That's still only 15%. That's not enough to influence any shareholder votes, and certainly not enough to dictate all of the creative decisions that Disney's been making for the last decades. Listen, I am not here to defend the big shady investment conglomerate, but the idea that these companies are secretly shaping the world to the woke agenda, it's patently absurd. It's tinfoil hat nonsense. Especially since these companies are a bunch of hypocrites anyway. BlackRock is one of the world's biggest investors in the fossil fuel industry, so clearly their commitment to investing in environmentally friendly and sustainable companies isn't exactly all that. I think a lot of the time investors talking about ESG scores actually is virtue signalling in the truest sense of the word. It's a thing they can talk about to make themselves look better and feel better while continuing to invest in the same destructive practices that they've always been investing in. But they're pushing ESG not because they're trying to destroy American values and society or whatever. They're pushing it because they want money. They're pushing them because they're the values that people want. Just like Sweet Baby Inc., this is just people looking for a villain, looking for someone to blame for the world changing in ways that they don't want to accept. It's not the world naturally becoming more diverse as communication improves and cultures merge. It's not shifting social ideas that acknowledge the humanity and validity of people with different experiences to our own. No, it's Sweet Baby Inc., it's BlackRock, it's interlopers coming in and ruining the things that used to be just for me. I find the framing of this whole thing really, really frustrating. I'm a weirdo who actually likes listening to GDC talks, so I listened to Kim Blair's entire talk, and it's actually very good. Along with a lot of other really interesting and important points, there's a section where she talks about the need to empathize with people that don't look like her.
I think we need to step out of this rule that like white men can enjoy fantasy worlds, aliens, sci-fi, monsters, anything, so long as it's through a lens that looks exactly like them. Because if that's the kind of person that we're always going to cater to, you're never going to innovate. You're never going to change things. You're just going to keep feeding the picky baby. And we cannot continue to try to create art under a system that is going to bar innovation for fear of a picky baby throwing a tantrum. And I really don't think that it's impossible to change this, because as like a woman of color, I have played with and like empathized with a lot of white men. I have played as Kratos, who's like literally white. I've played as Nathan Drake. I've played as Arthur Morgan, and I've loved it. And I don't think it's like pie in the sky thinking to go like, hey, maybe we can invite white dudes to play as other people and experience different things through someone else's eyes.
The idea that because these games no longer star a white man means that they're no longer made for us is absurd, and such a narrow-minded view of storytelling. That we're only able to relate to and empathize with people that look exactly like us. Stories are universal. They transcend race and gender and sexuality. Sable is a non-white teenage girl in a sci-fi desert wasteland, but that doesn't mean that I can't relate to and empathize with her struggle to find a place in the world or her joy in exploration. Her different background and experiences don't change the fundamental human truths of her story. I recently played a game called Vinba, a cooking simulator about an Indian family who moves to Canada. It's a deep, emotional and insightful dive into a story about immigration, racism and culture, and just because I'm not Indian doesn't mean that I can't enjoy hearing the story or find my own meaning in it. Diversity in games is not something that we need to fear. All it means is a wider range of cultures and perspectives to explore. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. These guys love to proclaim that Sweet Baby Inc. and other proponents of DEI, or diversity, equality and inclusion, are racist towards white men. They want to replace us and take us down, but it's not true, no matter how many out-of-context tweets you find that sort of suggest it. There's a lot of problems happening in the games industry, specifically the AAA industry. Corporate mismanagement, crunch culture, bloated budgets, and mass layoffs across the board because of it. The AAA industry is, in my opinion, on the verge of collapse, but diversity is not the reason why. Lack of unions is the reason why. And there is a lot of tokenistic representation in the games industry. Companies like Ubisoft that will fill their games with diversity while mistreating and underpaying their minority employees. Another important point in Kim's talk is that sensitivity reading is actually kind of bullshit work. Because it means that instead of hiring a diverse person to write the story, they're just bringing someone in to tell them that what they've done is okay and not racist.
I think that the way that we talk about this kind of thing is itself a problem. We need sensitivity readers. We need risk assessment. And these are like, again, important services that I literally like list on every PDF that I send out to be like, hey, I can do risk assessment and sensitivity reading. But I think when we do that kind of work and we make it seem like what we're doing is, you know, being very careful, being very scared, we end up just kind of sanding down all the rough edges instead of building something new and building something out.
If you're a Gamergater and you're still watching this, first of all, congratulations, almost all of your peers have long since given up by now. I want you to know that there is a grain of truth in the things that you believe. Big corporations don't care about your interests and care more about money. And diversity is in fact a tool that they are using to increase their bottom line. But that doesn't mean that diversity itself is the problem. And in the end, diversity and inclusion and camaraderie with people that are different from you can only make you stronger. Thank you for watching, and a very special thank you to my wonderful patrons for your continued support. This time I'd like to give an extra big thank you to Matt Kaufman, who just joined at my $20 tier. Thank you so much, you're an absolute legend, it means so much to me. If you'd like to see your name up here, or just support the things that I do, then please consider signing up, as well as a like, a comment, a share, and a subscribe. For video recommendations, how about this one that's actually going into a real crisis that's happening in the games industry right now? And hey, I'd also like to suggest that you watch Kim Blair's talk. She's an actual expert in this kind of stuff, and she has a lot of really interesting and important points that I didn't have a time or place to get into in this video, but I still think they're worth hearing, so check it out.